Fast 8 is out, so today I'll be ranking all the Fast and the Furious movies from the worst to the best. Now you are going to disagree, so be sure to leave your own list down below and subscribe if you enjoy this video. With that said, let's get started. Coming in at last place is Hobbs and Shaw. The definition of taking things too far. Whether that refers to the dumb and unrealistic elements like cyber super soldiers and sci-fi transforming motorcycles.
Are you serious?
That just doesn't fit the franchise at all. Now I know the franchise has lost its logic a while ago, but as I've said, this is just going too far. The same can be said about the humor, which can be painfully unfunny at times. The fun family dynamic of the other films are replaced by two men shouting insults at each other for the whole movie long. Now it isn't dreadful or anything, I do actually really like the final battle scene on Samoa, but other than that, the action scenes aren't even memorable. In second to last place, we have Tokyo Drift. Now I know a lot of you really love this movie.
From a certain point of view.
If you do, then cool. It's just not for me. I don't find the lead character all that compelling. I enjoy him as a side character in other films here and there, but not as the lead. And the plot is also really familiar, it's just Karate Kid with cars. But it does still focus on street racing, which may not be my favorite thing in the franchise, but it does result in some fun scenes at least. But even the one scene that has some weight to it is undone in later films. The best thing about it is definitely exploring life in this part of the world. That brings us to Too Fast, Too Furious. This movie can be summed up in one word: fine. That's all it is. It's a fine and average film with some cool moments. It just doesn't do anything interesting enough to stand out. The plot isn't really interesting, and at some moments, even though it is a pretty simple plot, it can feel a bit hard to follow and doesn't make the most sense. With that said, the action and racing scenes are all really good, and that's definitely when the movie's at its best, when it focuses on those elements. The two lead characters are also really entertaining, but overall the movie is just pretty forgettable. Up next we have Fast and Furious from 2009. Now this film made the good choice of focusing once again on the two lead characters from the original. This time around, street racing is put on hold and it focuses on the different side of the franchise, almost feeling like a spy film at times. Easily the best thing about it is the action scenes, they are so good. But on a story level, it doesn't work all that well. The plot, just like in the second film, isn't very interesting, and for how simple the premise is, it feels unnecessarily confusing at times. And again, like the second film, it's a pretty forgettable story. Some of the plot points even feel like a rehash of what we've seen before. Then we have F9. Well, it's definitely not forgettable. This movie is not great, but it does recapture some of the magic compared to the bottom few. The most annoying thing about it is, once again, they bring a character back who has been previously dead, then give us a far-fetched explanation for why they would be back. But on the other hand, this movie is obviously very self-aware, as you get Roman asking the same questions the audience does, which is kind of funny. And another silly aspect is that Dom suddenly has a brother out of nowhere, but that didn't bother me as much. I do actually really like it when they dive into his backstory, showing us the more grounded side of the franchise again. Speaking of grounded, the action is definitely not that, but it is a blast to watch.
I don't want to die!
That brings us to the original Fast and Furious. The first film is really a solid introduction to the franchise that focuses on what the franchise was originally known for: street racing. It may not be groundbreaking or anything, but this is a fun mid-tier film that does a good job of combining the action and racing genre. The stunts and action scenes in this film are all really good and feel grounded, but at the center are a group of great characters. The whole movie feels so small scale now, seen where the franchise has gone in recent years. But it really does a good job of introducing these characters, so while it is familiar, this is a fun and entertaining movie. In fifth place we have Fast and Furious 10. Definitely an improvement over F9 as it feels way more grounded, and does the clever thing of tying it into Fast 5. It also has a much more serious tone as you can feel how dangerous the villain is, and because of how it ties into the other films, you understand his motivation. And like most of the films, the action is really good, especially the Rome scene and the final battle. I do think it can feel a bit scattershot in the middle, as it keeps jumping from plot point to plot point, because the team is split up. But with the way it ends, it does a great job of setting up the final story. Up next we have Fast and Furious 6, another solid addition to the franchise that definitely learned from what worked in Fast 5. It doubled down on the over-the-top action scenes, but never pushes it too far. Like each action scene in this film is super entertaining and memorable. Whether it be a plane fight or the chase through London, it's all great. The characters are also all fun, but even though it does a lot right, it didn't work quite as well as it could have. It feels like it tries a bit too hard with the humor at times, and around the middle, it feels a bit slow. But still, a super entertaining movie that captures the group dynamic really well. That brings us to Fate of the Furious. Once again, the franchise delivers another great entry that gives us entertaining and over-the-top action. Whether that be an army of autopilot cars, or a submarine chasing sports cars across ice, it's dumb stuff but it's fun to watch. Even though all those scenes are really big action sequences, probably the best scene in the film is the Havana race that, while being over the top where you get Dom driving a car on fire, still reminds us of where the franchise started. The whole plot also feels unique, as this time Dom is going up against the team, which is something different for a change. The motivation for why he would do this also made sense, but a big issue I have with the film is how unnecessary the conflict feels, and it is basically caused by a lack of communication. In second place is Furious 7, a super over-the-top and entertaining movie that, while being full of dumb action, also really nails the emotions and is a great send-off to Brian. Here it goes full Mission Impossible and gives us some of the biggest action scenes in the franchise, from cars skydiving to cars jumping off buildings. It's crazy. You also get the introduction of Deckard Shaw, who is another fun addition and is definitely a good pick for being the villain in this film. And of course, that final scene honors Paul Walker's legacy and gives him a satisfying send-off. So this movie doubles down on the action, emotion and globetrotting, so it's easily one of the best. But coming in at first place is Fast 5. Now by this point the franchise fully embraced where it was headed, dropped out all the racing, and in doing so gave us a great heist film. It can have some great and sometimes ridiculous action scenes, but never goes too far over the top with them, like the later films do. It also does a great job of tying in everything that came before, and this is really a team-up film that pulls together all the different characters from the previous movies, which results in a great team dynamic and many fun interactions. The Rock is also an entertaining new addition as Hobbs, and the location of Rio is a great exotic location for the film. So putting that all together, it has great action, it has great characters, so that's why it comes in at number 1.